And it's time for Lefties Losing It. Here's Sweden's worst export global warming doom goblin, Greta Thunberg, causing more trouble in Italy. She's already got herself banned from Venice for dyeing the main canal green to protest the weather. Now she's pivoted back to her side hustle, Palestine. Let's look at her dancing with UN tax strain Francesca Albanese. Don't know about you, but talk about genocide doesn't normally have me dancing in the streets.
Genocide in Palestine is still ongoing. I repeat, the genocide in Palestine is still ongoing.
What a pack of weirdos. Now, we already have the seditious six, the Democrats who told members of the military to disobey so-called illegal orders, though they couldn't name any. Now we can say that we have a seditious 10 because the View co-hosts have jumped on board the treason train. Here they are suggesting orders given to members of the military may be illegal, and they're calling on US servicemen and women to perhaps break the chain of command.
Okay, enough is enough.
Well, I know this is why those Democratic vets put out that video last week that people said, why would they need to say what's already obvious, that, you know, military personnel, they don't need to, they can refuse to act on an illegal order. And people were like, yeah, but there's nothing like that. Well, this is a situation where there were clearly in the cameras two men on like parts of the explosion, and then they're killed. So the likelihood of this is, it's not a war. We're not at war with Venezuela, but it's murder. It's flat out murder. And anyone that acted on those orders could be held on war crimes. Am I?
Yeah. War crimes for killing narcotics traffickers, bringing drugs into America that will kill thousands? Really? Now, watch as Ana Navarro claims that the Trump administration isn't targeting these narco boats because of its war on deadly drugs. What's her theory?
Donald Trump is trying to convince Americans that this is about fighting drugs, and this is because Maduro released crazy people, opened up the jails and the insane asylums and sent people here. That second part is flat out lies. There is no evidence of that. On the drug aspect, very little of the drugs that go through Venezuela actually come to the United States.
Yeah, great analysis there, Anna. And for the last time, your opinions and weird fever dreams are not facts. Time to check in on trans activist Lily Tino, defending his behaviour in a women's bathroom where he took photos of women in what should have been a private, female-only area.
Took those photos with a very clear goal in mind, which was to show a non-passing trans woman existing peacefully in a bathroom. How do you change people's minds? That's why I posted the pictures, right? Like, yes, I knew it was going to be shocking. Like, I knew. I wasn't just trying to make people mad. I was trying to expose them to something that over time I want to be normal. I don't want to have to walk into a bathroom and feel afraid.
He knew precisely what he was doing, and he got the attention he so desperately craves. Now, we know Christmas is fast approaching and the White House is looking glorious. This year, First Lady Melania Trump oversaw the Christmas decorations. See if you can detect the subtle difference between Melania and Jill Biden's work. First, let's have a gander at what Christmas or the holiday season was like at the White House under the Biden administration. Remember this? I think we've had enough of that weirdness. We've had our quota for weird today. Let's have a look at this year's White House Christmas decorations under the guidance of Melania Trump. just a subtle difference, barely noticeable. Now it's time for a stroll down memory lane and watch here as Margaret Brennan from CBS claimed that Afghan asylum seekers were all properly vetted, even as JD Vance gives her examples and tries to explain to her why prioritising the safety of Americans should be the top priority. I have to say that interview made Margaret Brennan look pretty terrible at the time. After what happened in DC last week, it makes her look even worse.
You said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals have been properly vetted.
But there are 30,000 people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary concern as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people are vetted. These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country.
The inept governor of Minnesota, the man Kamala Harris selected to be her running mate in her failed presidential campaign, is under renewed pressure due to the extraordinary amount of fraud and criminality in his state. Even NBC was asking Tim Walz the tough questions.
Dozens of people of East African descent have been charged, convicted, and sentenced for stealing more than $1 billion in taxpayer money from government programs during COVID. As you know, Governor, that is more than Minnesota spends each year to run its Department of Corrections. So I want to give you a chance to respond to this. Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Well, certainly I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems.
Say what now? Did he just say I take responsibility for putting these people in jail? He did no such thing. It was federal prosecutions that put them in jail. But watch as that lie takes hold in the media. And of course, it's repeated by the reliably daft ladies of The View.
Tim Walz said, I put these people in jail. Yeah. Wasn't like we sat around and didn't do anything. And the horrific part is, why is he painting all Somali Americans with this paintbrush?
Far from putting them in jail or even properly investigating fraudulent behaviour, this is what Tim Walz did, according to hundreds of state workers at the Minnesota Department of Human Services, who released a statement that began with this: Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, what has been happening in Minnesota and what is Tim Walz's culpability here?
Fraud galore. There's fraud everywhere, but Minnesota has just become the poster child for it. As you cited over there, about $1 billion in taxpayer money has been defrauded. That's more than their annual revenue that they take in tax revenue. A lot of it is from the slush money that was going around because of COVID funding. There's lots of fraud that happened around that, Medicaid, housing, all of those things. The one that's getting extra heat is this organization that is a Somali organization. So while fraud is bad when it's of any stripe, it just adds extra salt on the wound when it's happening from a foreign associated entity or recent immigrants that are perpetuating that fraud. That just cuts deeper, which is why that's part of the story, on top of the other fraud. And his culpability, I mean, look, he's kind of got this Elmer Fudd persona, and everybody laughs at him, and he doesn't come across as strong at all. Certainly that's part of it, because it's leadership. I will say in his defense, the root cause of all of this is structural. When you have a giant welfare state in the country, and then you pour into that this spigot of immigration and people who don't really care about the common good and they're sort of here for a cash grab, you're going to wind up in these situations. But he is a poster child of somebody who's a weak leader, and $1 billion of fraud is a very, very bad story, and it's getting bad to worse. And you add to that mix all that COVID money that was just dispersed very loosely. Like candy, yeah. And the hundreds of millions that have been defrauded here, $1 billion is just astonishing. Now, Trump has released a rather extraordinary statement via Truth Social, and there is so much here. We're just going to unpack a small part of it. There's a lot of red meat for the base here, Kosha. This is precisely why he won in a landslide. It's stuff that the media hates, the political class hates, but it's what his base wants to hear. Let me read you a few sections. He wrote, a migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. Kosha, there's more in that statement we're going to look at, but what are your thoughts on what I've just read about the economic and social burden that some forms of migration cause the host country? I mean, it boils down to those two things. The economics, big picture, is you're just pouring competition into the labor market. Hence, it depresses wages because there's more and more people competing for limited numbers of jobs. That's why you have things like the average or the median entry-level home price used to be 3 times the median income a generation ago, and now it's 7 or 11 times, depending on the city. So it's just more and more difficult for people to survive and earn a comfortable middle-class living based on that. Then you've got the fraud and all of these types of examples that he's citing and others. And that comes back to the welfare state, as we discussed. Post-World War II, as he said in that tweet, there wasn't a giant welfare state, or in the earlier years of immigration waves from Europe and so on in the U.S. history. So 30% of immigrants from Europe went back because they couldn't make it. Yeah. Now you're just inviting the world, and then you can collect these kinds of price tags of food stamps and housing and this and that and defrauding the system. Welfare, I think, is what would be offensive to many Americans, many of them who have never collected welfare. They just put money in, they work, they pay taxes, and then they see their neighbourhoods changing, not for the better, and this welfare. Have mass immigration with mass welfare. Those two together is a recipe for disaster. And then the social piece of it, which you touched on as well, is part of it too, that not all cultures are interchangeable, not all cultures are compatible. It's been very difficult to say that out in the open in recent times, but it's becoming more and more obvious to people, and that's why the public opinion and public sentiment on immigration in general, not just legal, but also legal, skilled, unskilled, all of it, is really rapidly changing, but it might be too late. Well, let's have a look at more of this Trump statement, focusing on Minnesota and the mass migration of Somalians to that state. Here's what President Trump wrote. He said, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both, while the worst congresswoman in our country, Ilhan Omar, always wrapped in her swaddling hijab, and who probably came into the USA illegally, in that you are not allowed to marry your brother, does nothing but hatefully complain about our country, its constitution, and how badly she is treated when her place of origin is a decadent, backward and crime-ridden nation, which is essentially not even a country for lack of government, military, police, schools. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policy has eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the US system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden's illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, end all federal benefits and subsidises to non-citizens of our country. Kosha, a lot there. All the focus has been on the assessment of Tim Walz being, and I quote, seriously retarded, but there are some major policy announcements
in that statement, and they followed through with that.
Huge. And he sent that out on Thanksgiving Eve. Yeah. So it was this barn burner.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We're enjoying the weekend. Some of it, I would say, to his base was a bit surprising that it hasn't been done already. So, you know, when he said in there, we're going to cut benefits, these types of welfare benefits to illegals and non-citizens, a lot of people thought that had kind of been done from when he signed that flurry of executive orders on day one. But be that as it may, that is why he won in a landslide. He single-handedly changed the whole conversation around immigration when he came into the political arena in 2015. It is not being implemented fast enough. Maybe inherently it cannot be implemented fast enough because the wave of immigration is always 10 steps ahead of any policy, catch-up policy that you do on the back end, unless you go bold and really do something that would be considered radical, which is what he had in there, things like a moratorium for a generation, maybe. Why is it a given that every country has to take immigrants? Maybe GDP goes down. Maybe some of those metrics are not as important as other metrics. So that's the kind of stuff he's talking about in terms of cutting off funding for anybody who's not a citizen, taking welfare benefits, taxing remittances when they're sending that money back to their own country. That's sort of like a flavor of the tariff thing that he's doing. And also, I think the last thing is if you are found criminally liable for something, should immigration status be on the table? So not just that you go to jail or you have a fine, but visas being revoked. Denaturalization is something
that's
he's been throwing out there.
That's a big one. So if you've been naturalised and you are now a US citizen, that they could take that away if there is serious criminality.
But the courts will fight that, and we'll see where
that one's going to be a legal battle. Now, the attack on 2 National Guard members by an Afghan national, that has also seen the Trump administration take a very hardline stance on immigration issues and particularly vetting those entering the US. The Department of State has paused all US visas for those travelling on Afghan passports, and the US has announced all asylum decisions will be paused until they can ensure that every alien is vetted and screened to the maximum degree possible. Let's hear from President Trump.
How long does your administration plan to pause asylum into the U.S.?
I think a long time.
Can you give any kind of time?
We don't want those people. We have enough problems. We don't want those people. You know why we don't want them? Because many of them are no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
What do you mean by those people? Can you
the people from different countries that are not friendly to us, and countries that are out of control themselves. Countries like Somalia that have virtually no government, no military, no police. All they do is go around killing each other. Then they come into our country and tell us how to run our country. We don't want that.
It is just such a dramatically different approach to what we've seen in this country from both sides of politics, what we've seen in the UK. You could say Nigel Farage, who's leading in the polls, has got that Trump flavour now in what he says, but that is unashamed, bold. The Republicans must feel that they're on safe ground on this issue.
They are. Public polling has completely shifted, as we were saying, in favor of it. He is shifting the Overton window of what is acceptable discourse, what are the bounds of debating what the appropriate immigration policy is. So even if he doesn't land where he's saying, he's shifting the goalpost into that direction, and hopefully we get closer to it. Some would say, instead of banning all, quote, third world country immigrants, is ban everybody. Do a moratorium, because then you get out of this framing of, oh, you're being racist or you're attacking one country over another. Just ban it all and live with the consequences of GDP or skills gaps and all that.
He's not into that because he does want to bring in skilled migrants, and that there's been conflict within his base over that policy.
Like the Chinese students, he stuck up for them and paid a price for it politically. So you're right, he's not quite that bold, but he's definitely shifting the discussion.
Kosha Gator, thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
Welcome back. Joining me now is comedian Alex Stein. And Alex, we're going to talk about the issue of immigration, illegal and legal migration through asylum programs, some better run than others, some with barely any vetting. Let's hear from the man dubbed America's Sweetheart by Jesse Waters, the Trump administration's bulldog, Stephen Miller.
This was not a loophole. The Biden administration, Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, devised a scheme to fly illegal aliens into the country and then to escort them en masse across the border by the millions and to give them something known as parole, which gives them a work permit, which gives them a social security number, which gives them access to the voting booth. This was the plan all along, to get them here illegally so they can get free government benefits, get hooked to welfare, and be able to participate in American elections. This was an attack on democracy by the Democrat Party. It's the same attack that we see, Sean, when you have California, a sanctuary state, that is refusing to turn over even illegal alien criminals and gang members to ICE. So these are illegal aliens in California who have been arrested by California police, by California law enforcement for serious crimes, for crimes against children, for felonies, for crimes that threaten public safety, and they are refusing to hand these criminal illegal aliens over to ICE. Instead, they're freeing them back into the cities to offend and offend again. By any definition, what California is doing is criminal.
Alex, is that how you see it, that the Democrats, these policies that they implemented were essentially an attack on American democracy?
1,000%. And one of the other reasons they do it is so that they can increase the census, so they can get more, representatives in Congress by filling their state with illegal immigrants. So this is a immigration scam that's been going on. And let's be real, even conservatives aren't against social services. We just don't want our social services going to illegal immigrants over American citizens. And what Stephen Miller said was exactly correct. And, the past administration basically just let anybody that wanted to come could come to this country. It didn't matter. Their criminal record didn't matter, why they were leaving their country. We just let them come in. And now we're facing the consequences of an administration that was trying to win future elections by basically giving free social services to illegal immigrants in the hopes that they will not only up the numbers in their area to get more representation, but so that they'll vote to continue to keep all these free social services for themselves. So it's a horrible system. And, if you come to America, you need to come the right way. You don't need to come here illegally because, it's really affecting all of the jobs and just, the overall well-being of our entire country.
Now, President Trump was in attack mode against Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, even touching on the almost taboo topic, which is the manner in which she is alleged to have entered the country.
When you talk about denaturalizing, talking about like Somalia, where you have a congressman goes around telling everybody about our Constitution, and yet she supposedly came into our country by marrying her brother. Well, if that's true, she should be a congressman, and we should throw her the hell out of our country.
Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
You don't think that...
You have a problem with it? Anybody that would allow those people into a state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia, yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
Didn't miss Tim Walz there either. Alex, how will this attack against Ilhan Omar play out? I've already seen outrage from the usual suspects at CNN, MSN Now, ABC, NBC, all of them. But how is the average American seeing this clash between Trump and Omar?
Well, the average American probably doesn't know that Ilhan Omar allegedly did an immigration scam where she allegedly married her brother. So I think if more people knew that, they would definitely be frustrated if she was their representative. But when it comes to the issue in her district and all of the Somalis that live there, Donald Trump is exactly right. Tim Walz is just letting these people come in here and, tampon Tim Walz. I'm so happy that he is getting called out by Donald Trump. And, you had all of these politicians go after conservatives like George Santos, and need to go after these liberals like Ilhan Omar.
Oh, I tell you, the Somalian population certainly has become a powerful force in Minnesota, and they are impacting on elections there. Now, we know the Trump administration is hell-bent on stamping out illegal immigration. There are those who continue to support those who are in the country illegally, including you, Alex Stein.
Would you rather date a liberal or an illegal immigrant?
I would always rather date a big Latina, and that's why I want amnesty for all big Latinas. If you're a 9, you're fine. I love these illegal immigrants. The more illegal, the better. Like, I want them fresh off the boat because I don't want them to come here and get too Americanized. I like their culture, so sometimes they lose that. They become like an American woman, lazy and online shopping. No, I want a woman that could cook, clean, and fold the bed corner so that it's perfect, so that when I get into my home bed, it feels just like I'm getting into a bed at a hotel. And who cleans all the hotels the best? Big Latinas.
Alex, try to explain yourself. I can't help you here.
Well, Rita, I don't need a lot of help. This is a bipartisan issue. Here in America, we want the cartel members thrown out. We want all of the illegal gangbangers. But if you're a beautiful big booty Latina, you're welcome to stay in our country. We want amnesty for all 9. If you're a 9, you're fine. If you're an 8, no immigration debate. you're welcome to stay. And Rita, you're welcome to stay as well. You don't have to be a Latina. Any beautiful immigrant can stay. All the guys, you got to go.
Alex Stein, thank you so much for your time tonight.